The War Council sat in silence around a table full of red projections. Each red dot represented an enemy ship. There were too many to count. The holographic display filled the entire room with crimson light, making everyone look like they were covered in blood. Commander Ji-hoon stood with his arms crossed, his face showing no emotion. He was a human, one of only 3 in the room. His dark eyes studied the red dots while the alien council members shifted nervously in their seats. Admiral Vethris spoke first. She was a Kaldorian, a species that looked like large birds with 4 arms instead of wings. Her feathers were standing up, a sign of fear among her kind. 10,000 ships, she said, her voice shaking. The Ravagers bring 10,000 ships to Kepler Junction. We have 800. The holographic display rotated slowly. The red dots moved like a swarm of angry insects, all heading toward one point. That point was where the coalition fleet waited. The blue dots representing their ships looked tiny and helpless. General Morth slammed his stone-like fist on the table. He was a chronet, a species made of living rock and metal. "We must evacuate," he said. His voice sounded like grinding stones. "We cannot win this fight. We save what we can and retreat." Other council members agreed. They spoke in different languages, translated instantly by computers, but all saying the same thing. Run, hide, survive to fight another day. Ji-hoon said nothing. Next to him stood Yuna, his tactical officer. She was young for her position, only 30 years old, but her mind was sharp like a blade. She watched the projections with focused attention, her fingers moving across her datapad as she ran calculations. "Commander Ji-hoon," Admiral Vethris turned to face him. "Your people are newest to the coalition. You have fought the Ravagers only once before. You lost half your fleet in that battle. Surely you understand we cannot win here." Ji-hoon finally spoke. His voice was calm and steady. "I understand the numbers, Admiral. I understand that every simulation shows we will lose. I understand that the Ravagers have never been defeated in open battle. Then you agree we must evacuate?" Vethris asked, hope in her voice. "No," Ji-hoon said simply. "Humanity votes to stay and fight." The room erupted in noise. 6 different species all began talking at once. Some made sounds of anger. Others made sounds of confusion. General Morth stood up, his massive body towering over the table. "This is madness," he shouted. "Your species joined the coalition only 5 years ago. You know nothing of the Ravagers. They have destroyed 17 star systems in 3 months. They have killed billions. Every species that fought them died or surrendered. What makes you think you can do what we cannot?" Ji-hoon met the general's angry gaze without fear. "I think nothing, General. I know we will fight because that is what humans do. We don't run from impossible odds. We face them." "You will die," Vethris said softly. "All of you. Your ships, your crews, your families waiting at home. All dead for nothing." "Perhaps," Ji-hoon agreed. "But we will die fighting, not running. And maybe, just maybe, we will take enough of them with us that the next fight will be easier for whoever comes after." A smaller alien, a Quilian with 6 eyes and blue skin, spoke up. "This is your human pride talking. We have studied your history. Your species fought wars against itself for thousands of years. You nearly destroyed your own planet 3 times. You think death in battle is glorious. But it is not. It is just death." Ji-hoon's jaw tightened. "You're right. We did fight ourselves for thousands of years. We learned every way there is to kill and survive. We learned that sometimes you have to make hard choices. We learned that surrender today means death tomorrow anyway. The Ravagers don't take prisoners. They don't make deals. They destroy everything. so we might as well make them pay for it. The room fell silent again. The red projections continued their slow rotation. In 48 hours, those red dots would reach the blue dots. Then the killing would begin. Vethris looked at Ji-hoon with something like pity in her large eyes. I admire your courage, Commander. But courage without wisdom is suicide. I am sorry, but I must recommend to the Council that we evacuate immediately. We will vote now. The Council members prepared to vote. Each species got one vote. There were 7 species represented. Humans were 1. They needed 4 votes to stay and fight. Before Vethris could begin the vote, Yuna stepped forward. She had been quiet the whole time, watching and calculating. Now she moved to the center of the room, her small human frame dwarfed by the larger aliens around her. Wait, she said. Her voice was not loud, but everyone heard it. Before you vote, you should know something. The simulations are wrong. Every eye turned to her. Vethris tilted her head, a gesture of confusion. What do you mean? The computers have run every possible scenario. We lose in all of them. Yuna touched her datapad. The holographic display changed. New lines appeared, connecting the blue dots in strange patterns. The red dots began moving differently in the simulation. The computers run scenarios based on standard coalition tactics, Yuna explained. Defensive formations, firing lines, retreat patterns based on shield strength and hull damage. These tactics work against normal enemies. But the Ravagers are not normal. And neither are we. She changed the display again. Now it showed recordings from old human wars. Ships from Earth's history, submarines and aircraft carriers and destroyers, fighting in ways that looked chaotic and random to the ordered alien minds. Humans don't fight like you do, Yuna continued. We never have. We use deception. We use sacrifice. We use tactics that your computers would call errors because they involve acceptable losses. Acceptable losses? Vethris repeated the words like they tasted bad. There is no such thing. Every life is precious. Every life is precious, Yuna agreed. That's why we're willing to sacrifice some to save the rest. You see death as failure. We see death as a tool, a weapon, a price we pay for victory. General Morth growled. This is barbaric. We are civilized beings. We do not throw away lives. Ji-hoon stepped beside Yuna. And that's why you're losing, he said quietly. The Ravagers know you will always choose preservation over victory. They know you will retreat to save your people. They count on it. They use it against you. Yuna brought up another display. I have a plan. It uses human tactics. It requires sacrifice. It involves doing things that will seem wrong to you. But it can work. The room was silent except for the hum of the holographic projectors. Vethris stared at the young human woman. What kind of plan? Yuna looked at each council member in turn. Her eyes were hard and determined. The kind where some of us die so the rest can live. The kind where we don't fight to preserve ourselves. We fight to destroy them. The kind that wins. She paused, then spoke 3 words that would change everything. We have alternatives. Yuna's fingers moved across the holographic controls. The display changed to show a new battlefield arrangement. The blue dots representing coalition ships moved in patterns that made the alien council members lean forward in confusion. What you see as weakness, we see as opportunity, Yuna began. She highlighted 200 of the blue dots. These ships will be our bait. We will strip them of heavy armor and weapons. Make them fast but fragile. They will engage the Ravager frontline first. Admiral Vethris made a sound of distress. You want to send 200 ships to die? Just like that? Not to die, Yuna corrected. To lead. To make the Ravagers think we are afraid and disorganized. They will chase these ships. believing they are seeing our fleet break apart in panic. A new human appeared in the doorway. Tai Yang was the commander of special operations. He was shorter than Ji-hoon but moved like a cat, smooth and dangerous. Behind him came 3 more humans. Hana, who worked in communications. Minho, a fighter pilot with a scar across his cheek. Sumin, the chief engineer with grease still on her hands. While the Ravagers chased the bait, Tai Yang said, entering the conversation, "My teams will be hiding in the debris fields around the junction. Magnetic clamps, no engines running, invisible to their scanners. When their capital ships pass by, we board them." General Morth laughed, a sound like rocks falling. "Board them? You want to put soldiers on enemy ships during a space battle? This is insane." "It's effective," Tai Yang replied calmly. "We did it against the Ravagers in the Battle of Titan. 3 boarding teams took out a ship 20 times their size by sabotaging it from inside. 1 ship, yes, but it worked." Hannah stepped forward. She was the quietest of the group, speaking so softly that the translation computers almost missed her words. "I will handle psychological warfare. Humans have been using it for thousands of years. We will broadcast signals that mimic Ravager command codes. False orders. Contradictory instructions. Panic messages. Their fleet coordination will start to break down." Suman added her part. "I will modify our remaining ships. Remove unnecessary systems. Redirect power to weapons and engines. The Ravagers expect coalition ships to fight at 70% capacity to preserve systems for retreat. We will fight at 120%. Yes, some ships will burn out, but they will burn out while firing." Vethris was shaking her head. Her feathers lay flat against her body, a sign of deep distress. "This is not warfare. This is chaos. Organized chaos." "Exactly," Ji-hoon said. "The Ravagers fight in perfect formation. Perfect timing. Perfect coordination. They expect the same from us. When they see chaos, they won't know how to respond." Yuna brought up another simulation. This one showed the battle plan in motion. The bait ships scattered. The Ravagers pursued. Then, at a specific point marked in yellow on the display, everything changed. "This is the kill zone," she explained. "When the Ravagers reach this point, pursuing what they think is a broken fleet, we trigger the Trojan satellites." "The what?" asked the Quilian Council member Sum and smiled. "Satellites that look like debris. We've been quietly deploying them for the last week. The Ravagers scanned them and ignored them because they appear to be wreckage from old battles. But they're not. Each one contains an electromagnetic pulse generator. When we activate them all at once, they will disrupt the Ravagers' formation controls. Their ships will lose coordination for approximately 4 minutes," Yuna continued. "That's when our main fleet executes the scatter protocol." The display showed the remaining coalition ships breaking formation completely. They spread out in all directions, no pattern, no order. Just 600 individual ships attacking from 600 different angles. "You want us to abandon formation?" Vethris could barely speak. "Formation is everything. It is how we protect each other, how we focus our fire, how we survive. Formation makes you predictable." Minho spoke for the first time. The fighter pilot's voice was rough, like he had been yelling. "I fly a small ship. 1 pilot, 2 guns, paper-thin hull. Information, I follow the rules. I die following the rules. When I break formation, when I go where I'm not supposed to go, when I do things that make no sense, I survive. More than that, I win." He pointed at the display. "The Ravagers are trained to fight formation against formation. They calculate firing solutions based on predictable movement. When we scatter, every ship becomes its own problem. They cannot track 600 individual threats. Their computers will overload trying to prioritize targets. Ji-hoon took over the explanation. During those 4 minutes of confusion, with their formation disrupted and our ships attacking from everywhere, Taeyang's teams will be inside their capital ships. Hana's false signals will add to the chaos. And our ships, running at maximum power, will hit harder than they expect. It's still 10,000 against 800, General Morth pointed out. Even with all this, the numbers are against us. The numbers are always against us, Ji-hoon replied. That's why we don't fight with numbers. We fight with determination, with creativity, with the willingness to do what they think we cannot. Yuna pulled up human historical records. Battles from Earth where smaller forces defeated larger ones. The Battle of Thermopylae, the Battle of Agincourt, the Battle of Midway, the Siege of Bastogne. Each one showed humans winning against impossible odds. This is what we do, she said quietly. This is who we are. When others see impossible, we see difficult. When others see suicide, we see a chance. Admiral Vethris was silent for a long moment. She looked at each human in turn. Then she looked at the other alien council members. They are serious, she said. They truly believe this can work. Because it can, Ji-hoon insisted. But we need the coalition to trust us, to follow tactics that seem wrong, to do things that go against your training. The Quilian council member spoke up. And if we refuse? If we vote to evacuate anyway? Then humanity will stay and fight alone, Ji-hoon said without hesitation. We have 150 ships in the fleet. We will use them all. And when we die, the Ravagers will remember that someone finally fought back. The room fell into heavy silence. Outside the window, stars shone peacefully. In 48 hours, this space would be filled with weapons, fire, and death. General Morth stood slowly. His stone face was hard to read, but his voice was thoughtful. I have fought in 60 battles. I have never lost a single one. You know why? Because I only fight battles I can win. I retreat from battles I cannot. This has kept my people safe for 200 years. He paused. But in those 200 years, we have lost 13 colonies to the Ravagers. We retreat and retreat and retreat. And they keep coming. Maybe. He struggled with the words. Maybe it is time to stop retreating. One by one, the other council members began to nod. Slowly, reluctantly. But they nodded. Veth single quotes RIS spread her forearms wide, a gesture of surrender among her people. I do not like this plan. It goes against everything I believe about warfare. Everything my people have learned in 3,000 years of civilization. But, she looked at Yuna. But you are right. What we have been doing is not working. The Ravagers keep winning because they know exactly what we will do. She took a deep breath. I will vote yes. But I have one condition. You must promise me that you will not waste these sacrifices. If your people die in this plan, their deaths must mean something. Ji-hoon placed his hand over his heart, a human gesture of sincerity. Every death will mean something, Admiral. We will make sure of it. Yuna began assigning tasks. We have 36 hours before the Ravagers arrive. Taeyang, position your teams. Hannah, prepare your communication warfare packages. Su-min, start the ship modifications. Minho, brief all fighter squadrons on the new tactics. The humans moved quickly, already thinking ahead to the battle. The alien council members watched them go, feeling like they had just agreed to something terrible but necessary. Vethris approached Ji-hoon as the others left. Commander, I must ask, how many of your people do you expect to survive this battle? Ji-hoon looked at the holographic display, at the red dots that outnumbered the blue ones so badly. Honestly? Maybe 30%. Maybe less. And you can accept this? He turned to face her. "No, Admiral. I cannot accept it. It will haunt me for the rest of my life. But I can live with it, because the alternative is doing nothing and losing everyone. At least this way, some survive. And the Ravagers learn that humans do not surrender." Vethris touched his shoulder gently with one of her 4 hands. "You are a strange species, Commander. Brave and terrible at the same time." "Yes," Ji-hoon agreed. "We are." The ship modification bays were full of activity. Su-min walked between vessels, checking the work her engineers had done. They were stripping armor plates from 200 ships, removing secondary weapons, pulling out escape pod systems. Everything that was not essential had to go. A young engineer named Ji-won approached her. He looked worried. "Chief Su-min, I must speak with you about what we are doing." Su-min wiped sweat from her forehead. The modification bay was hot from all the cutting torches. "What is wrong?" "We are removing the escape pods," Ji-won said quietly. "If these ships are damaged, the crews cannot abandon them. They will die with their ships." "I know," Su-min replied. She did not look happy about it. "But every escape pod has mass. That mass slows the ships down. We need them fast. Is speed worth their lives?" Su-min stopped working and looked at the young man. "Jae-won, do you know what happens if we lose this battle?" "Yes, the Ravagers will control the junction. They will advance deeper into coalition space." "No," Su-min corrected him. "The Ravagers will kill everyone. Every person on every planet they reach. They do not take prisoners. They do not enslave. They exterminate. So yes, speed is worth their lives. Because if we are not fast enough, everyone dies anyway." Ji-won was quiet for a moment. "The alien species do not think this way. That is why they are losing," Su-min said. She put a hand on his shoulder. "I do not like this either. But I like the alternative even less." Across the station, in the fighter pilot briefing room, Minho stood in front of 200 pilots. Most were human. A few were Kaldorians who had volunteered to learn human tactics. He pulled up images of previous battles. "Forget everything you learned in flight school," he told them. "All that stuff about maintaining formation, following your wing leader, staying in your assigned zone? Forget it. In this battle, you are going to fly like the enemy is trying to kill you." A Kaldorian pilot raised one of her 4 arms. "But the enemy is trying to kill us." "Exactly," Minho said with a fierce grin. "And the best way to stop them is to be where they do not expect. When they shoot at where you are, you should already be somewhere else. When they think you are retreating, you attack. When they think you are attacking, you slip past them and hit their bigger ships." He showed footage from his own combat recordings. His small fighter weaved between enemy fire, used destroyed ships as cover, flew through debris fields that should have torn his ship apart. It looked insane. It looked impossible. But it worked. "This is called survival flying," Minho explained. "You do not try to win every fight. You try to survive every second. If you survive long enough, you get chances to strike. Those chances are what matter." A human pilot asked, "What about the kamikaze runs?" The room went very quiet. Even the Kaldorian pilots had heard about this tactic. It was considered the most extreme thing humans did in battle. Minho's face became serious. "Kamikaze runs are a last resort only. If your ship is too damaged to continue fighting, if you cannot reach friendly lines, if you are going to die anyway, then you can choose to take an enemy ship with you. But it is always your choice. No one orders it. No one expects it. It is a gift you give if you choose to." Meanwhile, Taiyang was with his special operations teams in a different part of the station. They'd practiced boarding procedures over and over. Magnetic boots, cutting through hull metal, fighting in zero gravity. It was dangerous work even in practice. Captain Do-hyun entered the training area. He was older than most of the special operations soldiers, with gray in his hair. He commanded one of the ships in the big fleet. "Taeyang," Do-hyun said. "I want to ask about the timing. What about it? Your teams need my ships to lead the Ravagers to specific coordinates. If we arrive too early or too late, you will not be in position to board their vessels." Taeyang nodded. "That is correct. The timing must be exact." Do-hyun smiled sadly. "Then I should tell you that my ship will be exactly where it needs to be. Exactly when it needs to be there. Even if I have to push the engines until they explode. Captain, the plan does not require you to destroy your own ship." "No," Do-hyun agreed. "But the plan requires success. And I will do whatever ensures success. My crew knows this. We volunteered together." Taeyang gripped the older man's arm. "Your sacrifice will not be wasted." "I know," Do-hyun said. "That is why I can do it with peace in my heart." In the communication center, Hana worked with a team of specialists. They were creating false Ravager communication codes. It was delicate work. The codes had to be close enough to real ones that the enemy would listen, but different enough that they would create confusion. A specialist named Rina asked, "How do we know these codes will work?" "We have only captured a few Ravager transmissions." Hannah adjusted her screens. "We do not know for certain. But confusion does not require perfect codes. It only requires doubt. If half the Ravager ships receive orders that contradict the other half, they will pause. They will question. That pause is what we need." Hours passed. The modifications continued. The training continued. The preparation continued. Jihan walked through the station, checking on each team. He found Yuna in the command center, running simulations over and over. She looked exhausted. "You should rest," he told her. "I am trying to improve the survival percentage," she replied without looking up. "Right now, the simulation shows 60% casualties. If I adjust the timing here and the positioning there, maybe I can reduce it to 55%. "Yuna," she stopped, looked at him. Her eyes were red from staring at screens for too long. 5% is 20,000 lives, she said quietly. 20,000 people who might go home to their families. How can I rest when 20,000 lives depend on getting this exactly right? Ji-hoon sat down beside her. "You cannot save everyone. No plan can. You are doing everything possible. Is it enough?" "It has to be." They sat in silence for a moment. Then Yuna asked, "Do you ever wonder if we are wrong? If maybe the aliens are right and we are the barbaric ones?" Ji-hoon thought carefully before answering. "Yes, I wondered that often. But then I remembered that being civilized means nothing if you are dead. The Ravagers do not care how civilized we are. They only understand strength." "Strength through sacrifice," Yuna murmured. "Yes." Admiral Vethris appeared in the doorway. "Commander Ji-hoon, I need to speak with you." They moved to a private office. Vethris paced back and forth, her feathers rustling with agitation. "I have been speaking with my people," she said. "Many are frightened by the human tactics. They say it is one thing to fight and die with honor. It is another to throw lives away. We are not throwing lives away," Ji-hoon insisted. "Every death serves a purpose. But can you guarantee victory?" "No. I cannot guarantee anything except that we will fight with everything we have." Vethris stopped pacing. "That is what frightens them. And me. You humans, you accept death so easily. As if it does not matter." "It matters," Ji-hoon said firmly. "Every single life matters. That is exactly why we fight this way. Because if we fight carefully, trying to protect everyone, we lose slowly. If we fight boldly, accepting losses, we have a chance to win. And winning means more people survive in the end. But what about those who die along the way?" Ji-hoon's voice was heavy with emotion. They become heroes. They become the reason others live. They become the price of freedom. I hate it. I wish there was another way. But there is not. Vethris sat down, her forearms folded across her chest. You know what the other species call humans? They call you the Death Seekers. They think you love war. We do not love war, Ji-hoon replied. We are just very, very good at it. And we are willing to pay costs that others are not. Outside, the countdown continued. 30 hours until the Ravagers arrived. Then 24. Then 12. The Bait Fleet crew said goodbye to their families over video calls. Some cried. Some laughed. Some simply held their loved ones' images on the screen, memorizing faces they might never see again. Taiyang's special operations teams checked their equipment one final time. Magnetic clamps, cutting torches, weapons, medical supplies. They probably would not live long enough to use. Minho and his fighter pilots sat in their cockpits, waiting. Some listened to music. Some prayed to gods from a dozen different worlds. Some just sat in silence, thinking about home. Suman's engineering teams finished the last modifications. 200 ships now sat in the bay, faster than before, but fragile. Beautiful and terrible at the same time. Hana uploaded the false communication codes into the system. Everything was ready. Everything was prepared. In the command center, Ji-hoon stood with Yuna and the alien council members. They watched the sensors. The red dots were coming, moving steadily closer. 10,000 ships against 800. General Morse spoke quietly. I have never been so frightened before a battle. Good, Ji-hoon said. Fear means you understand what is coming. It is the people who are not afraid that worry me. The sensors updated. 6 hours until contact. 5 hours. 4 hours. Captain Do-yoon sent a message from his ship. Bait fleet ready. We will lead them to hell. Taiyang reported. Boarding teams in position. Waiting in the dark. Minho called in. Fighters armed and ready. Let them come. Hana confirmed. Communication warfare packages uploaded. Ready to activate. The first shots came from the Ravagers. Brilliant beams of energy crossed the darkness of space, seeking the small coalition ships that dared to approach. Captain Do-hyun watched the displays in his command center as the enemy fire got closer. All Bait Fleet ships, scatter on my mark, he commanded. Remember, we want to look afraid. We want to look confused. Make them think we are breaking apart in panic. The 200 ships began to move erratically. Some turned left. Some turned right. Some accelerated forward while others slowed down. To any military observer, it looked like complete chaos. It looked like a fleet falling apart. The Ravagers took the bait. Their front lines surged forward, sensing weakness. More and more enemy ships joined the chase. They moved in perfect formation, a red wave pursuing the scattered blue dots. On the flagship, Yuna watched the tactical display with focused intensity. They are committing their vanguard forces. 5,000 ships breaking from the main formation to pursue. Just as we predicted, Ji-hoon said. Do-yoon, you need to pull them another 15,000 kilometers forward. Understood. Do-hyun's voice came back. We can do that. But we are taking heavy fire. I have already lost 12 ships. I know. I am sorry. Do not be sorry. Just be ready when we get them where you need them. The Bait Fleet continued leading the Ravagers deeper into the trap. They flew through the debris fields around Kepler Junction, weaving between broken stations and destroyed ships from previous battles. The enemy followed, confident in their superior numbers. Hidden in that debris, Taiyang and his special operations teams waited. They were attached to large pieces of wreckage with magnetic clamps, their ship's engines completely shut down. To the enemy sensors, they looked like nothing more than debris themselves. "Steady," Taiyang whispered to his teams. "Do not power up until they pass. Let them come to us." The Ravager capital ships were massive. Each one was 5 times larger than the biggest coalition vessel. They moved through the debris field with their shields at full power, certain of their invincibility. Dahyun's fleet reached the kill zone coordinates. "Mark," he transmitted. "We are in position. Activate Trojan satellites," Yuna ordered. All across the battlefield, hundreds of objects that looked like debris suddenly came to life. They had been drifting in space for days, looking like broken ship parts and shattered hull fragments. But each one contained a powerful electromagnetic pulse generator. They all activated at once. The effect was immediate. The Ravager ships lost their formation coordination. Their perfectly synchronized movements became confused. Ships that should have turned left went right. Ships that should have accelerated slowed down. For a species that relied on perfect coordination, it was devastating. "Now," Ji-hoon commanded. "All ships, execute scatter protocol." The remaining 600 coalition ships broke formation. Every tactical manual said this was suicide. Every training program said ships should stay together for mutual protection. But the humans had different ideas. 600 ships became 600 individual problems for the Ravagers to solve. They attacked from above and below, from left and right, from angles that should have been impossible. Their weapons targeted different systems on different ships. There was no pattern to predict, no formation to counter. The Ravager computers tried to calculate firing solutions but could not keep up. Every time they locked onto one target, 3 more appeared from different directions. Their perfect military machine was facing something it had never encountered before: organized chaos. Taiyang saw his chance. "All teams go!" The special operations ships powered up and launched from their hiding places. They accelerated toward the massive Ravager capital ships, magnetic clamps ready. The enemy point defense systems tried to stop them, but they were too focused on the larger battle to notice the tiny ships approaching. Taiyang's ship slammed into the hull of a Ravager capital vessel. The magnetic clamps locked on. He and his team grabbed their cutting equipment and began burning through the outer hull. "Breaching in 30 seconds, he reported. All around the battlefield, other teams were doing the same thing. 20 special operations ships attached to 20 Ravager capital ships. It was insane. It was impossible. But it was working. Minho led his fighter squadron through a storm of weapons fire. A Ravager destroyer locked onto him. He dove under a piece of debris, came up on the other side, and fired at the destroyer's engines. The enemy ship spun out of control. "Never stay still," he shouted to his squadron. "Keep moving. Make them chase you." A young pilot's voice came over the radio, frightened. "I cannot shake them. 3 fighters on my tail. Lead them toward the big wreckage at Mark 7, Minho instructed. Then brake hard left at the last second. He watched on his sensors as the young pilot followed instructions. The pilot turned sharply just before hitting the wreckage. The 3 pursuing Ravager fighters were not fast enough. They crashed into the debris and exploded. "Good kill," Minho called. "See? Use everything as a weapon." Inside one of the Ravager capital ships, Taiyang and his team fought their way toward the engine room. The corridors were full of enemy soldiers. They were strange creatures, all metal and biomass mixed together, moving with mechanical precision. "Flashbang!" Taiyang shouted at his team through the grenades. The bright light and loud noise disrupted the Ravager sensors. While they were confused, the humans pushed forward, firing their weapons with deadly accuracy. They reached the engine control room. Taiyang pulled out the sabotage device that Suman had designed. It was simple but effective. When activated, it would cause the ship's power core to overload. "Setting timer for 5 minutes," he said. "That gives us time to escape. And if we do not make it out?" One of his soldiers asked. "Then we go down with the ship. Either way, this capital vessel will not threaten the fleet again." They planted the device and ran back toward their entry point. Captain Do-Yoon's ship was dying. Half his crew was already dead. The engines were failing. Fire spread through 3 decks. But they had done their job. They had led the Ravagers exactly where they needed to be. "All remaining Bait Fleet ships," he transmitted. "Final attack. Give them everything we have left." The surviving ships of the Bait Fleet turned toward the enemy. They had been running and dodging for hours. Now they charged forward one last time. Their weapons blazed. Some rammed enemy ships when their guns ran out of ammunition. Do-Yoon's ship accelerated toward a Ravager cruiser. His engines were red hot, past maximum safe levels. He did not care. "For those who come after," he said quietly. His ship hit the cruiser at full speed. Both vessels exploded in a ball of fire that lit up the battlefield like a small sun. Hana activated the false communication codes. Suddenly, Ravager ships were receiving contradictory orders. Some were told to retreat. Others were told to advance. Some were told to target coordinates that made no sense. The confusion spread. Captains hesitated. Crews questioned their orders. The perfect machine of the Ravager fleet began to break down. Admiral Vethris watched from her command ship, unable to believe what she was seeing. The humans were actually winning. It was costing them terribly, but they were winning. "All Kaldorian forces," she commanded. "We will fight as the humans do. Break formation. Choose your own targets. Attack with everything you have." Her ship scattered. At first, her crews were confused and frightened. Breaking formation went against every instinct. But they did it. And they discovered that it worked. General Morth saw the Kaldorians succeed. He growled, then made his decision. "Chronet forces advance. No more defensive positions. We attack." His massive ships, built like floating fortresses, charged into the enemy fleet. They abandoned their careful tactics and fought with raw aggression. It felt wrong. It felt dangerous. But it felt right too. One by one, the sabotage devices Taeyang's teams had planted began to activate. Ravager capital ships exploded from the inside. 20 massive vessels, the spine of their fleet, destroyed by small teams of soldiers who should not have been able to get close. The battle had been raging for 6 hours. The coalition had lost 300 ships, but the Ravagers had lost 4,000. And then something happened that had never happened before in any battle against the Ravagers. They began to retreat. At first, it was just a few ships pulling back. Then dozens. Then hundreds. The species that had never known defeat was running away. "They are retreating," an alien officer shouted in disbelief. "The Ravagers are retreating." Ji-hoon allowed himself a small smile. "Do not celebrate yet. We need to let them go. Our ships are too damaged to pursue effectively. Let them run. Let them remember this defeat." The enemy fleet turned and fled. They left behind thousands of destroyed ships and debris that would fill this sector of space for generations. Slowly, the weapons fire stopped. The battlefield grew quiet, except for the crackling of damaged ships and the hiss of venting atmosphere. "Status report," Ji-hoon asked, though he knew it would be bad. Yuna checked the screens. Her hands were shaking. "We have 492 ships remaining. 308 destroyed. Casualties are still being counted, but estimates suggest 300,000 dead. 300,000. The number was staggering. But they had won. Minho's fighter limped back to the carrier. His ship was held together with emergency patches and prayer. Flight control, I am coming in hot. The War Council sat in silence around a table full of blue projections. The red dots were gone. The Ravager fleet had retreated to the far edges of Coalition space, regrouping and trying to understand what had happened. But alongside the blue markers showing surviving ships, another display showed names. 300,000 names. Scrolling slowly, each one a life lost in the battle. The council members watched the names appear and disappear, unable to look away. Commander Ji-hoon stood at the head of the table. He had not slept in 36 hours. His uniform was stained with smoke and blood. His hands rested on the table, and they were shaking slightly. "Mission report," he began, his voice hoarse. "Kepler Junction secured. Enemy fleet routed. 4,000 Ravager ships destroyed. Coalition losses, 308 ships. Approximately 300,000 personnel." The numbers sounded cold when spoken aloud, clinical, but everyone in the room knew the truth behind those numbers. Those were not just statistics. Those were people with families, dreams, hopes. Admiral Vethris spoke first. "In 3,000 years of Caldorian military history, we have never achieved a victory of this magnitude. We have also never suffered losses this severe in a single battle." "The losses were severe," Ji-hoon admitted. 70% of those who died were human. We knew the risks. We accepted them. General Morth leaned forward. His stone-like features showed something that might have been respect. "I called your tactics insane. I called them barbaric. I was wrong. You did not fight like barbarians. You fought like warriors who understood that victory requires sacrifice." Yuna stood beside Ji-hoon. She looked even more exhausted than he did. Her eyes were red from crying, though she had tried to hide it. "I have run the analysis. If we had fought using standard coalition tactics, we would have lost the entire fleet within 6 hours. The Ravagers would have taken the junction with minimal losses. Instead, they lost 40% of their forces and retreated for the first time in their history. But 300,000 people died following my plan," she added quietly. "That is not a victory to celebrate." A Quillian Council member, the small blue-skinned diplomat who had questioned human tactics before, stood up. "Tactical Officer Yuna, I must disagree. Those 300,000 died saving billions. The Ravagers were heading for the Quillian homeworlds. If they had passed through the junction, my entire species would have been exterminated within a month. You saved us all." Tears ran down Yuna's face. She bowed her head, accepting the words but not feeling comforted by them. Ji-hoon continued with his report. "Recommendation for future engagements. Coalition forces should receive training in human tactical methods, not to replace their existing strategies, but to supplement them. The Ravagers now know we can fight differently. They will adapt. We must be ready to adapt faster." "I have already begun making arrangements," Vethris said. "I am sending 50 Caldorian officers to Earth for training in your military academies. General Morth has agreed to do the same with Kronid officers." Morth nodded. "My people are warriors. We thought we understood war. But you humans taught us that we only understood one kind of war. There are others. We must learn them all if we are to survive." The council spent the next hour discussing strategic changes. New ship designs that incorporated human modifications. New tactical training that included chaos theory and asymmetric warfare. New protocols for special operations and boarding actions. But eventually, they had to address the hardest part. The cost. The names that kept scrolling on the display. "We must honor them," Vethris said. "Every species in the coalition must understand what was sacrificed here. We need monuments, memorials, something permanent." "Already in progress," Ji-hoon replied. "Earth is building a memorial wall with every name. Other coalition worlds have asked to do the same. Captain Dohyun and the Bait Fleet will have their own monument on Kepler Station." He paused, his voice breaking slightly. Dohyun came to me before the battle. He told me his ship would be exactly where it needed to be, exactly when it needed to be there, even if he had to destroy his own ship to do it. And he did. He and his entire crew gave everything so that others could live. The room was silent. Then, one by one, the council members stood. It was a gesture of respect from a dozen different cultures, all standing together to honor the fallen. After the formal meeting ended, smaller gatherings began. Officers from different species talking quietly, sharing stories, learning from each other. A Kaldorian commander named Reshkin approached Sumin. "Chief Engineer, I studied the modifications you made to our ships. At first I thought they were reckless, but now I understand. You were trading safety for effectiveness." Sumin nodded tiredly. "Every choice in war is a trade. Speed for armor, firepower for defense, safety for victory. The question is always, what are you willing to trade? And how do you decide? You ask yourself what matters most. For me, what mattered most was making sure enough people survived. If that meant some ships would burn out their engines, then that was the price." Reshkin was quiet for a moment. "I would like to learn more about human engineering philosophy. Would you be willing to teach me?" "Yes," Sumin said. "I think I would like that." Elsewhere on the station, Minho was in the medical bay. His body was covered in bruises from the violent maneuvers he had pulled during the battle. A doctor was treating his injuries while other pilots waited their turn. A young Kaldorian pilot sat nearby, her wing feathers bandaged. "Commander Minho, I followed your tactics during the battle. I did things my training said were impossible. And I survived." "Good," Minho said. "That is the whole point. Survive first. Win second." "But I was so frightened. I thought I was going to die." "You were supposed to be frightened. Fear keeps you sharp. Fear makes you careful, even when you are being reckless. The pilots who are not afraid are the ones who die first." The young pilots seemed to take comfort in that. "Will you teach us more? There are many Kaldorian pilots who want to learn human fighter tactics." Minho smiled despite his pain. "Sure, but I warn you, it is going to be hard. And scary. And sometimes you will think I am trying to kill you during training. That is acceptable. After seeing what we faced, I know that training must be harder than battle." In a quiet corner of the station, Ji-hoon found Yuna sitting alone. She was watching the memorial display, where the names continued to scroll. He sat down beside her without saying anything. "I killed them," she finally whispered. "I made a plan that I knew would kill hundreds of thousands. And I did it anyway." "You made a plan that saved billions," Ji-hoon corrected gently. "Does that make it right?" "No, it makes it necessary. Right and wrong are luxuries we cannot always afford in war." Yuna turned to look at him. "How do you carry this? How do you live with the weight of so many deaths?" Ji-hoon was quiet for a long time before answering. "I do not carry it well. I have nightmares. I see their faces. I hear their last words. Captain Do-hyun saying for those who come after. The special operations teams that did not make it out in time. The fighter pilots who took kamikaze runs to save their friends." He took a deep breath. "But I carry it because if I do not, if I break down, then their deaths mean nothing. I have to keep going. I have to make sure their sacrifice mattered. That is the burden of command. I do not know if I am strong enough for this burden." "You are. You proved it. You made the hardest choice anyone can make. You chose who would live by choosing who would die. That takes a kind of strength most people never have to find." They sat together in silence. Two humans who had changed the fate of a galaxy, but would never stop questioning the cost. Days passed. The memorial was completed on Kepler Station. It was a massive wall made of crystal, with every name engraved in light. People came from across coalition space to see it, to touch the names of loved ones lost. To understand the price of victory, Ji-hoon stood before the wall, looking at Captain Do-hyun's name. Beside him stood Admiral Vethris. "Your people have changed the coalition," she said softly. "Before this battle, we fought to preserve ourselves. Now we fight to win. It is a small difference in words, but a massive difference in thinking. Will it be enough?" Ji-hoon asked. "The Ravagers will come back. Next time they will know what to expect. Then we will have to surprise them again. That is what humans do, yes? You adapt. You change. You find new ways to win. That is what we do," Ji-hoon agreed. "But we cannot do it alone. We need the coalition to embrace this new way of thinking. Not just in battle, but in how you see warfare itself." Vethris spread her four wings, a gesture of commitment. "We are ready to learn. You have shown us that survival requires more than technology and defensive positions. It requires courage, sacrifice, the willingness to pay terrible prices for necessary victories." Around them, other species were arriving at the memorial. Cronets whose stone bodies moved with new purpose. Quillians who understood they owed their lives to human sacrifice. Dozens of others, all changed by what had happened at Kepler Junction. General Morth approached. "Commander Ji-hoon, I have news from intelligence. The Ravagers are regrouping at the edge of our sensor range. They appear to be building new ships. Different designs. They are learning from their defeat. How long until they attack again?" 6 months. Maybe less.